Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking at something really fundamental.
We are.
It's about the very core of what a judge is supposed to be. We're analyzing this incredible source, a philosophical essay called The Judge as the Conscience of the Nation.
And what's so fascinating is where this essay comes from.
Right.
It's not just an academic paper. It's drawn from the 100th episode of a huge project called True Courtroom Stories.
100 episodes.
100 complete case-based episodes. It's this massive global judicial archive. And it was all researched and compiled by Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir, who's a constitutional and corporate lawyer.
So this isn't just theory, it's grounded in a century of real stories, real cases.
Exactly. It connects everything from ancient philosophy to, the modern-day constitutional crises we see playing out.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to figure out what it really means for a judge to be more than just, a referee.
To be a moral sentinel.
A moral sentinel. I like that. We're going to connect these big ideas, drawing parallels from U.S. Justice Robert Jackson all the way to doctrines being used right now in Pakistan's courts.
Because the core struggle is universal. The demand for judicial courage, for integrity, that's the same everywhere.
So we're not just talking about law, we're talking about the soul of the judiciary.
Precisely. We're looking for that aha moment that explains why sometimes the most important legal decision is the one nobody wants to hear.
And that journey really starts with understanding the incredibly high bar that's set for anyone who takes that oath.
It's an ethical responsibility, first and foremost.
So our sources dive right into this ethical foundation, and they draw from an Islamic judicial tradition, which is fascinating. It frames the judge's role as being under this immense moral pressure.
It does. It's not a job. In that view, it's a sacred duty.
Right. Not just an arbiter of facts, but a moral guardian for the entire society.
And this foundation is built on 4 specific duties. And what's amazing is when you break them down, you realize they are completely universal.
Any court, anywhere, that wants to be seen as legitimate has to be doing these things.
Exactly. So let's break down these 4 pillars that make up this conscience of the nation.
Okay, so the first one is a big one. Judges as guardians of justice. We hear that phrase all the time, but what does it really mean? Beyond just applying the law as it's written.
Right, because it's about something more than just legal positivism. The idea that the law is only what's on the page.
Okay.
A guardian of justice has to uphold the spirit of fairness, the equity of it. Sometimes the letter of the law can actually lead to a really unjust outcome,
Like a loophole.
Exactly. A loophole, or just an old law that doesn't fit the modern world. The judge's job is to see that and to temper the strict rule with fairness, with what we call equity.
So if a powerful company could use a tiny procedural mistake to completely crush a small business,
The guardian of justice has to step in.
they have to look for a way, maybe a constitutional principle or just good conscience to prevent that absurd outcome.
That's it, exactly. They have to actively engage with the text.
Right.
They can't just be a machine plugging in facts and spitting out verdicts. They have to ensure the law serves fairness, not just procedure.
That distinction is so critical, the letter versus the spirit.
It's everything.
And if the judge is supposed to be this active moral agent, that leads us right into the second role, which is maybe the toughest one.
Oh, for sure.
Restrainers of power. This is the classic counter-majoritarian function, isn't it?
It really is the peak of judicial independence. And that term, counter-majoritarian, it just means the court has to be willing to stand up to everyone.
The government, the legislature.
Even the public. Even if 99% of people want something, if that thing violates the fundamental rights of the 1%, the judge's job is to stop it.
And that's where the courage comes in.
Yeah.
Because you're telling the most powerful people in the country, no, you're wrong.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that always comes with a cost. It means political backlash, media criticism, intense pressure.
Yeah.
But when a government agency oversteps, or a powerful person acts like they're above the law, the judge is the only one who can step in and pull them back into line.
They have to be willing to start that political firestorm to protect the Constitution.
That is the first and greatest test.
Okay, so if the judge has to restrain the powerful, who are they doing it for? Who's the main beneficiary?
Well, that brings us right to the third role.
The protectors of the weak.
Yes. This is where the idea of justice for all really becomes concrete. The law can be complicated, it can be expensive.
It favors people with resources.
It often does. So this duty means the judge has to actively protect the rights of the marginalized and the poor, people who can't get a good lawyer, minority groups. anyone whose voice might get drowned out.
So it's not about inventing new rights for them.
Not at all. It's about making sure the rights that are already on the books, due process, fair hearings, are applied with absolute rigor, especially when the person standing in front of you is the most vulnerable person in the room.
So, for a moment, the courtroom is supposed to be the one place where your bank account and your social status don't matter.
That's the ideal. The judge has to be the one to make that ideal a reality. They have to look past everything and just see the facts and the law and ensure that the process is fair for the person who has nothing.
Which is an incredible responsibility.
It is.
And that brings us to the final role, the one that gives our whole deep dive its title.
The big one.
The conscience of the state. I mean, this sounds almost spiritual.
It kind of is. It's about taking the long view.
What do you mean by that?
Well, governments, politicians, they think in short cycles. The next election, the next poll.
Right.
The judiciary, acting as the conscience of the state, has to think in terms of decades, in terms of principles that last. They have to make decisions based on constitutional longevity, not political convenience.
So they're always asking, what will this decision mean for the country 50 years from now? Will it make us a more just society or a less just one?
Exactly. They're the institutional memory, the ethical gyroscope. When the state starts to drift from its core values, the judiciary is supposed to be the force that pulls it back on course.
So it's about legitimacy, not popularity.
That's the perfect way to put it. They are safeguarding the long-term ethical health of the nation, even if it means making a very unpopular choice today.
When you put all four of those roles together, guardian, restrainer, protector, and conscience, you see, they're not just abstract ideas.
No, they are the job description.
They are literally what a modern constitutional court is supposed to do every single day.
And the source material really drives this home. This moral standard is universal. It doesn't matter if it's a small claims court or the Supreme Court. The moment a judge sees their role as just procedural, just a box-ticking exercise,
The whole system starts to decay,
the moral foundation crumbles.
which sets the stage perfectly for our next section. Because what happens when that moral foundation is put under the kind of pressure that's designed to make it crumble? All right, so this next section is built around a story, a really powerful anecdote from that huge judicial archive that Mr. Muir put together.
It's the kind of story that it really stays with you.
It does. It's about a judge who is facing the ultimate test. He's being pressured by the powers that be to approve an act of clear injustice.
And the reason he's given is so seductive and so dangerous.
Do this for stability.
For stability. It's the oldest trick in the book. It's the temptation to be pragmatic instead of principled.
To just keep things quiet. Avoid a big fight.
Exactly. Avoid a constitutional crisis. Keep the economy humming. Don't rock the boat. And the word stability is the excuse used to justify it all.
Let's really analyze that pressure because it's never framed as, hey, help us do this corrupt thing.
No, of course not.
It's framed as an appeal to the judge's sense of civic duty. Judge, you have to help us prevent chaos, or the country can't handle this right now.
Just this one time, look the other way. It's an argument designed to make the judge feel that the responsible thing to do is to compromise.
But their ultimate responsibility isn't to a quiet life or a stable stock market.
It's to the Constitution. It's to the law. And true, lasting stability only comes from one thing: legitimacy. And you can't have legitimacy without justice.
And this judge, he understood that. He refused to go along with it.
He did.
And the source gives us his exact words, a quote that really ought to be carved in stone above every courthouse door.
It's incredible.
He said, "Stability built on injustice is collapse delayed."
Just let that sink in. It's not just a clever line. It is a fundamental truth about how societies work.
It completely demolishes the entire argument for authoritarian stability.
It does. It says that if your peace and quiet is based on a foundation of oppression or a lie, it's not real. It's a ticking time bomb.
The injustice creates fault lines, stress fractures in the system.
Deep, volatile ones. And by approving the injustice, the judge isn't preventing collapse. They're guaranteeing it. They're just pushing it down the road for someone else to deal with.
It's like seeing a crack in the foundation of a skyscraper and just painting over it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect analogy. You're just postponing the inevitable and making the eventual collapse that much worse.
And every time a court makes that compromise, a little bit of the public's faith in the whole system just evaporates.
And when that faith is gone, people stop obeying the law because they believe in it. They only obey it out of fear. And that's when things really start to fall apart.
So what happened to this judge? His courageous stand must have had consequences.
It did. The source is very clear. The judge accepted removal rather than compromise.
Wow. So he lost his job.
He lost his job. He gave up his career, his position, his security, all for a principle.
And that sacrifice. That's the whole point of the story, isn't it?
Right. It's everything. It shows you, the listener, what the real cost of protecting the rule of law can be. It's not abstract. It sometimes requires this kind of quiet, personal heroism.
The willingness to walk away.
The willingness to walk away rather than become a tool of power. That is the only way judicial independence is ever truly maintained.
So is this kind of struggle unique, or is it a universal constant? The source material makes a fascinating connection here.
A very important one.
It links this judge's story directly to the philosophy of Justice Robert Jackson from the U.S. Supreme Court.
And this connection is so powerful because Jackson saw firsthand what happens when law collapses. He was the chief prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials. He understood how fragile justice can be.
And his warning, which the source quotes, sounds like he could have been talking to that very judge. He said, courts must stand against transient passions.
Transient passions, what a phrase.
Let's break that down. What is a transient passion?
It's not just a disagreement. It's a wave of public hysteria. It's the intense political pressure that builds up after a national crisis or during a war.
Fear.
A lot of it's fear. And it's the government saying, we need to act fast, we need to be secure, we don't have time for due process or fundamental rights.
It's the temptation of the short-term fix.
Exactly. Jackson's point was that those passions, they burn incredibly hot, but they don't last. But the damage they can do to the Constitution, that can be permanent.
So the court has to be the calm, rational, long-term thinker in the room.
The court has to be the brake. While everyone else is caught up in the panic of the moment, the judge has to be the one to step back and ask, is this necessary? Yes. Is it popular? Maybe. But is it constitutional? Is it just?
The judge in the story stood against the transient passion for stability. Justice Jackson warned against the same thing. It proves that this fight, this moral challenge, it's the same everywhere.
It transcends borders, legal systems, and time. The moral sentinel's job is always to guard the eternal principles against the urgent demands of the moment.
So we've seen this incredible convergence of ideas, from ancient duties to a modern judge's sacrifice. And this brings us to Section 3, where the source material shows us how these ideals are being put into practice today.
Right. It's not just philosophy anymore. It's an active legal doctrine.
Specifically, it points to the growing use of something called constitutional morality in Pakistan's courts.
Which is a very sophisticated and powerful concept. To really get it, you have to understand that it's about more than just the literal words written in a constitution.
Okay, so what is it about?
It's about the spirit of the document, the underlying values, the ideals of democracy, justice, equality, human dignity, all the things that give the text its meaning.
It's the ethical framework, the soul of the Constitution.
That's a perfect way of putting it. It's the soul. So if a government passes a law that is technically, it follows the letter of Article X.
But it completely violates the spirit of democracy that the whole Constitution is built on.
Then a court can use the doctrine of constitutional morality to strike that law down. It says you have to comply with the ethical foundation, not just the technical rules.
That's a powerful check on power. It stops people from twisting the Constitution into something it was never meant to be.
Exactly. And the source highlights 3 specific ways that courts are using this right now.
Let's walk through them. The first one is simply invoking constitutional morality. Just the act of bringing it up in a judgment. What does that signal?
It signals that the court is not going to play a simple game of legal literalism. It's a statement of principle.
We're holding you to a higher standard.
Precisely. When a court invokes it, they're saying, we're looking at the historical context, we're looking at the democratic ideals of the founders, and we're going to judge this government action against that standard. It gives them the justification to protect rights that might not be explicitly spelled out, but are clearly part of the Constitution's moral fabric.
Okay, so that invocation of a higher standard leads directly to the second application.
It does.
The protection of democratic order. How does that work in practice?
This is where the court acts as a guardian of the process of government itself. They might step in to rule on, say, procedural games being played in Parliament, or to ensure fair elections, or to maintain the separation of powers.
So they're protecting the machinery of democracy.
Yes. They're making sure that the game is played according to the deep-seated democratic rules, not just the temporary whims of whoever happens to have a majority that week. It's crucial during times of political instability.
And the third application, this feels like it ties everything together. It goes right back to that judge.
It does. It's the restraint of authoritarian impulses.
Because modern authoritarians don't usually roll in with tanks.
No, they creep in. They use legislation. They pass laws that slowly consolidate their power, that silence dissent, that restrict the press, all under the guise of national security or efficiency.
And this doctrine gives the court the tool to see through that.
It gives them the ethical framework to identify those laws for what they are, power grabs, and to strike them down, even if they were passed by a legitimate majority. It's the constitutional firewall against democratic backsliding.
This all leads to what the source calls the ratio decidendi, the decisive reason, the core of the whole argument.
And it's a chilling but absolutely true statement.
When judges lose courage, constitutions lose meaning.
And that, for you, the listener, is probably the single most important takeaway. A constitution is not a magical, self-enforcing document.
It's just words on paper.
It's just words on paper. It's a promise, a blueprint for freedom. But it is completely powerless without courageous human beings, judges, willing to give it force.
Let's really sit with that. So a constitution can guarantee free speech, but if a judge is too scared of the political backlash to protect a journalist,
Then that right is gone. He's been effectively erased. The words are still there in the book, but they have no meaning in the real world.
So courage isn't just a nice-to-have virtue for a judge.
It is the absolute non-negotiable prerequisite. It is the engine of the rule of law. Without it, the whole machine grinds to a halt.
It's incredible how it all comes together, whether you start with ancient Islamic philosophy or American legal history with Justice Jackson or modern Pakistani doctrine.
You end up in the exact same place.
It all comes down to one thing: the moral strength to stand up to power. The judge has to be both a legal scholar and a moral sentinel. There's no other way.
And every single case that touches on state power is a test. It's a choice between upholding that fragile, beautiful structure of constitutional law or letting it be chipped away by the politics of the moment. In a very real sense, the judiciary stands between us and chaos.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it really does all come back to that definitive moral lesson from the source material. A lesson drawn from that incredible 100-episode archive by Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir.
It's a lesson that reframes what true national strength is.
It is. The source says, nations are saved not by armies, but by judges who refuse injustice.
And that's not just a poetic line. It's a hard-nosed argument about what actually creates a stable, prosperous society.
It's not raw power.
It's not force. It's the consistent, predictable, principled application of the law, even when it's hard, even when it's unpopular. That integrity is the bedrock.
So let's quickly recap the key takeaways for you, our listener.
First, we've seen that a judge has this profound dual responsibility.
Right. They have to be a brilliant legal interpreter, but that's not enough. They also have to be a courageous moral sentinel.
And second, we've really hammered home the difference between temporary, brittle stability and real, lasting justice. One is just a delay tactic. The other is the foundation of a healthy nation.
And that judge from the story, the one who chose removal over compromise, he is the living embodiment of all these ideas. His sacrifice makes the philosophy real.
It shows that these duties have real-world consequences for the judge and for the nation they serve.
And that leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to consider, which builds directly on the source we've been exploring. We've talked about this foundational judicial archive 100 episodes deep, built by Mr. Zahir Ahmad Mir. Think about the sheer weight of history and precedent in that collection. Now imagine that the judge in that story we discuss. Imagine he had made the other choice. Imagine he had compromised. He approved the injustice for the sake of stability. How would that single act of cowardice have poisoned the well? How would it have changed the narrative of judicial integrity for every single case that came after it in that archive?
What happens to the rule of law when the moral sentinel chooses silence?
The shadow of that one compromise would stretch over everything, making justice that much harder to find for everyone who followed.
Chilling thought.
It is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the soul of the judiciary. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge and understanding.